throwaway account. My friend is a shark who monitors social media, so I need to keep this under wraps until the legal team gives me the green light. But I needed to vent. I, 27 male, have been a digital artist and a hobbyist coder for nearly a decade. For the last 2 years, I've been obsessed with something I call AI Magic Realism. It's not just clicking generate on a prompt. It's a custom workflow I built using specialized Python scripts and a unique LoRa model I trained on my own oil paintings and thousands of high-res textures I've photographed over the years. My best friend, let's call him Leo, 27 male, has been my shadow since middle school. Leo is charismatic, handsome, and has the gift of gab. He's the guy who could sell a solar panel to a person living in a cave. I, on the other hand, am the guy who stays up until 4 a.m. perfecting the lighting on a digital blade of grass. 2 years ago, we decided to open a shared creative studio. The deal was simple. I would handle the production, the art and tech, and he would handle the business, client outreach, and social media. We were a team, or so I thought. For the past 6 months, I've been working on a secret project, the Aetherius Collection. It's a series of 10 hyper-detailed digital pieces that combine AI generation with manual overpainting. It's my masterpiece. I was planning to enter it into the Nebula Digital Arts Prize, the biggest contest in our industry, with a $100,000 grand prize and a solo exhibition in NYC. Leo knew everything. He saw the sleepless nights. He saw the thousands of failed iterations. He saw how I fine-tuned the model to create a style that no one else in the world could replicate. Last Thursday, we had a small celebration in the studio because I finally finished the 10th piece. We ordered pizza, drank a few beers, and talked about how this win would put our studio on the map. Leo was particularly interested in the technical side that night. "So, Alex," he asked, leaning over my workstation, "is it all on this external SSD? The models, the training data, the raw renders?" "Yeah," I said, patted the black rugged drive. "It's the only copy of the final weights. I keep it encrypted and offline for safety. It's the crown jewel, man." He nodded, a strange look in his eyes that I mistook for pride. "You're a genius, bro. We're gonna be legends." The next morning, I arrived at the studio at 9 a.m. Usually, the smell of Leo's overpriced espresso was the first thing I noticed, but the studio was silent and cold. My heart sank the moment I looked at my desk. My workstation was on, the fans whirring loudly. The external SSD was gone. Not just the drive. Leo's laptop, his expensive camera gear, and even the ergonomic chair he'd complained about for months were all gone. I tried to call him, straight to voicemail. I checked our shared bank account. Drained. Not a single cent left. I checked our studio's Instagram. Deleted. Panic started to set in. I sat down at my computer and saw a text file on the desktop named sorry.txt. I opened it. It was short. "Alex, you always said I'm the face of this operation. Well, the face needs a better body. I'm taking the collection to the Nebula Committee under my name. Don't bother calling the police. The partnership agreement we signed gives me equal rights to all studio output. Thanks for the 100K head start. See you on the news." I felt like the floor had vanished beneath my feet. Leo didn't just steal my work. He stole my identity as an artist. He knew the partnership agreement was vague. He'd been the one to draft it, and I, trusting him like a brother, had barely glanced at the fine print. But as I sat there, shaking with a mix of grief and fury, I remembered something Leo often overlooked because he found it too boring. Leo isn't a coder. He doesn't understand how my scripts work. He thinks AI is magic. You plug in a drive and it works. He didn't know that my custom-trained model has a home call function buried in the metadata. And he certainly didn't know about the steganographic poison I'd experimented with a month ago. I looked at the empty space where my drive used to be and smiled through my tears. Okay, Leo. You want to be the face? Let's give the world something to look at.
Update. I saw his face on the cover of a digital magazine today. Read it, it hurts. But stay with me, because I'm finally going to explain what I did to those files. It's been 3 weeks since Leo vanished with my SSD and every cent in our studio account. I've spent that time in a state of what I call productive depression. I barely slept, lived on energy drinks, and sat in the dark watching fake social media accounts as my former best friend transformed into the new star of digital art. Leo didn't waste any time. Using the stolen money, he hired a top-tier PR agency. Yesterday, he was officially announced as a finalist for the Nebula Digital Arts Prize. His face, that perfect, rehearsed smile, is everywhere. I watched his interview with a major art blog. It was sickening. I worked on the Aetherius Collection in total isolation for nearly 2 years. He lied without even blinking. I developed this algorithm to capture the fragility of human memory through the lens of AI. It was an exhausting solitude, but the art was worth it. Exhausting solitude? He means those nights I spent coding until my eyes bled while he was out picking which vintage wine to order for dinner on my tab. My friends and acquaintances in the art scene started messaging me. Some were sympathetic, others cautiously asked, "Alex, isn't this the project you were telling me about?" But Leo had already planted the seeds of doubt. He started rumors that I was just a technical assistant who had to be let go due to unstable behavior. But here's what Leo didn't account for. He thinks neural networks are just a black box. You push a button, you get a picture. He believes that because he owns the model weights and the final renders, he owns the art. He forgot that I'm paranoid. You see, when I was training my LoRa model, I embedded what I call a digital DNA signature. Into every generated pixel of my work, I've woven tiny, invisible to the eye fluctuations in brightness that form my personal code. It's steganography. If you run any of these images through my simple script, it literally screams my name. But that was my defense. Now I needed an offense. A month ago, back when I still trusted Leo, I was experimenting with data poisoning. I was afraid competitors might try to scrap my work, so I created a callback script. In the final high-res render files sitting on that SSD, I embedded a hidden executable layer. Leo hasn't opened the source code. He just took the final .tef and .mp4 files. He doesn't know that these files are linked to a cloud trigger via their metadata. 2 days ago, the Nebula Committee announced that the finalists would present their work live on national television and via a global stream. It's going to be a massive show in NYC. Leo will stand on a stage, and behind him, on giant screens, his masterpieces will be displayed in ultra-high resolution. And that is exactly when my script will flex. I've already tested the system. The code is dormant. It's waiting for a specific date and time, the start of the finale. When Leo runs those files on the presentation computer, which he has to per contest rules, the script will ping my server. If I hit the button, something will happen that no one expects. The paintings won't just disappear, they will start to decay in real time. Yesterday, I met with a lawyer. He told me our partnership agreement is indeed trash and Leo legally has a claim to some rights. But he also said, "Alex, if you can prove authorship in a way the whole world sees in real time, no contract will save him. It will be the end of his career." I'm sitting in my empty studio. I don't have rent for next month. I don't have the gear he stole, but I have my finger hovering over the enter key. Leo thinks he stole my life. He doesn't realize he stole a time bomb.
I'm currently in a cheap motel in Queens, New York. I spent my last $400 on a one-way flight and a bus ticket. This is it. The finale is tomorrow. For the past week, I've been living like a ghost. While Leo was busy doing photo shoots for Tech Art Monthly and attending pre-gala parties at the MoMA, I was refining the kill switch. Let me explain the technical part for the nerds on Reddit, because this is where Leo's lack of coding knowledge becomes his downfall. My Aetherius Collection files are enormous, over 2 gigabytes per image because of the layers and the custom LoRa weights. When Leo stole the SSD, he thought he just had high-res TIFF files. He didn't notice the hidden binary blob I'd injected into the metadata headers. I call it a Steganographic Time Bomb. Inside the files is a script that executes only when the image is rendered through a professional-grade GPU buffer, exactly what they use for those massive 8K stadium screens at the Nebula Prize. The script does 3 things. It pings my private server to confirm it's being displayed, it checks the system clock, and at exactly 8:15 p.m. EST, the peak of Leo's presentation, it triggers a pixel shifter function. The pixel shifter won't just blur the image, it uses the hidden digital DNA I mentioned to rearrange the brightness and color values. Instead of my beautiful Magic Realism landscapes, the screens will slowly transform to reveal a giant, high-contrast QR code made of the art's own pixels. That QR code leads directly to a GitHub repository containing the original training data, the time-stamped source code, and a video of me creating the pieces 6 months ago. And just to be petty, I added a second layer. Once the QR code is fully formed, the bottom of the screen will display a scrolling text in bright neon, created by Alex Vane, stolen by Leo Rossi. I reached out to the Nebula Committee yesterday under an alias, pretending to be a concerned whistleblower. They ignored me. They're too invested in the Leo Rossi story. He's the golden boy. He's the visionary. They've already printed the oversized check with his name on it. This afternoon, I saw Leo from across the street near the Rockefeller Center. He was surrounded by fans and journalists. He looked expensive. He was wearing a $3,000 designer suit, probably bought with the money he drained from our studio's tax savings. He looked happy. He looked like he had won. I felt a surge of nausea, but I kept my hood up and stayed in the shadows. My lawyer, who is working pro bono now because he hates copyright thieves more than anything, sent me a final message. The moment that screen changes, I'm hitting send on the federal lawsuit and the injunction. He won't just lose the prize, he'll be legally radioactive by 9 p.m. I'm sitting here on this lumpy motel bed with my laptop. My heart is racing so fast I can feel it in my ears. I have $12 left in my pocket. I'm hungry, I'm tired, and I'm terrified. But I have the dashboard open. The Aetherius callback is active. The files have already pinged my server from the venue's rehearsal computer. He's using them. He's really going to do it. Leo, you always said you were the face of the business. Tomorrow, I'm going to show the world what's behind that face.
Update. It's over. The broadcast was cut short, the security was called, and I'm currently sitting in a diner with my lawyer. My phone is vibrating so much it's literally sliding across the table. Here is how the Aetherius reveal went down. I managed to sneak into the back of the auditorium. I didn't have a $500 ticket, but I still had my old studio staff badge. The security guard barely looked at it. I stood in the shadows near the sound booth, my laptop hidden in my backpack, connected to my phone's hotspot. The ceremony was sickeningly opulent. When the host announced, "And now, our final contender, the visionary behind the viral Aetherius Collection, Leo Rossi," the room erupted. Leo walked out under a spotlight, looking like a god. He didn't just look like an artist, he looked like a celebrity. He stood in front of a 50-foot 8K screen that was currently black. "Thank you," Leo said, his voice smooth and practiced. "Art is often seen as a solitary act, but with Aetherius, I wanted to merge the human soul with the infinite processing power of the machine. I wanted to create a world where every pixel tells a story of my own journey." I checked my watch. 8:15 p.m. "Let's look at the first piece," Leo announced, gesturing grandly to the screen. "The Silent Echo." The screen flickered to life. It was my favorite piece, a sprawling, surrealist forest where the trees were made of frozen lightning. The audience gasped. It was beautiful. For a second, even I was mesmerized by my own work on such a massive scale. Leo began his monologue about the meaning of the lightning trees. He was halfway through a sentence about internal electricity when the clock hit 8:15 p.m. First, it was a subtle flicker. A few pixels near the corner turned bright neon green. Leo paused, frowning. "Technical glitch, I suppose," he joked. The audience cluckered. But then the decay began. The forest didn't just blur, it started to rearrange. The trees began to melt, the lightning branches stretching and snapping into horizontal and vertical lines. The colors started shifting. Vibrant greens and blues turned into a stark, high contrast, black and white. "What's going on? AV team?" Leo turned around, his face illuminated by the flickering screen. The image was no longer a forest. It was a chaotic swirl of digital noise. And then the noise found its order. Within 30 seconds, the 50-foot screen was occupied by a single, perfectly rendered, massive QR code. A confused silence fell over the room. Thousands of people in the audience instinctively pulled out their phones and pointed them at the screen. Then came the second layer. The neon text started scrolling across the bottom, bright and impossible to ignore. "System authentication failed. Original author Alex Vane. Unauthorized use by Leo Rossi. Source data at github.com/alexvane/Aetherius." "Turn it off! Shut it down!" Leo was screaming now, his visionary persona shattered. He was frantically waving at the sound booth, but the script had locked the display buffer. The AV team was hitting keys, but my poison had taken over the local render node. I looked at my laptop. My lawyer had just sent the execution message. At that exact moment, every journalist in the room received a digital press kit containing the lawsuit, the original time-stamped files, and the evidence of Leo's theft. Leo stood there frozen as the audience began to murmur. I saw the head of the Nebula Committee standing up, looking at his phone, then looking at Leo with an expression of pure horror. Leo looked toward the sound booth, toward the shadows where I was standing. For a split second, our eyes met. He looked small. He looked like a thief caught with his hand in the vault. I didn't stay for the rest. I turned around and walked out of the auditorium just as the host walked back onto the stage, stammering about unforeseen technical difficulties. As I pushed through the glass doors into the NYC night, I saw the first notification on Twitter. Is Leo Rossi a fraud? Nebula Prize presentation hijacked by real creator. The face was gone. Only the truth was left.
Update. It's been 6 months since the Nebula glitch. I'm writing this from my new studio in Brooklyn. The air smells like fresh oil paint and expensive servers, and for the first time in my life, my name is the only one on the lease. The aftermath of that night was like a digital hurricane. The video of Leo screaming on stage went viral within minutes. By the next morning, Leo Rossi was the #1 trending topic on Twitter, but not for the reasons he wanted. He became the global poster child for intellectual property theft in the age of AI. Here is the breakdown of how the dust finally settled. The legal battle. Leo tried to fight. He hired a lawyer who argued that because he was a partner in the studio, he had creative input on the works. But my lawyer, the absolute legend, played the ultimate card, the digital DNA. We invited 3 independent forensic experts to analyze the Aetherius files. When they ran my script, they found my encrypted signature in every single one of the millions of pixels. The judge ruled that Leo's contribution was purely administrative and that his attempt to claim sole authorship constituted fraud. The partnership agreement was voided. Leo's fate. The prize. The Nebula Committee didn't just disqualify him, they banned him for life. They issued a formal public apology to me and offered me the $100,000 prize. I accepted it,
but donated half to a fund that helps independent artists protect their copyrights. The career. Leo is radioactive. In an industry built on reputation and creativity, he is a ghost. No gallery will show him, and no tech firm will hire a man who tried to scam a national awards committee. Last I heard, he's working in a high-pressure sales call center under a different name. The face of the business is now just another voice on a headset. The debt. He had to pay back every cent he drained from our account, plus legal fees. He's essentially starting from zero, but without the one thing that made him successful: my talent. My new beginning. The Aetherius Collection became more famous because of the scandal than it ever would have been on its own. I was offered a solo exhibition at the MoMA not as a tech assistant, but as a pioneer of AI Magic Realism. But the best part? I don't have a business partner anymore. I hired a professional manager, someone I pay a flat fee, someone who doesn't have equal rights to my soul. I've realized that I don't need a face to speak for me. My work speaks for itself. I still have that old rugged SSD on my desk. I don't use it anymore, but it reminds me of the most important lesson I've ever learned. Trust is a beautiful thing, but a secure backup and a hidden kill switch are even better. To everyone on Reddit who supported me, thank you. You gave me the courage to stand in that shadow and wait for the clock to hit 8:15. Stay creative and keep your source code locked.